Welcome to Resonance Rising. I'm Marissa Rhodes, and I am honored to introduce today's guest, Dr. Judy Safrir. Dr. Judy Safrir is a board-certified psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, astrologer, author of the award-winning book Sacred Psychiatry: Bridging the Personal and Transpersonal to Transform Health and Consciousness. She is also an artist and faculty member at Harvard Medical School. And I am so honored to have her join with us inside this summit. And I know that she will bring the needed depth and integration that is the heart of this gathering. She embodies the frequency of leadership that must be integrated as we all are co-creating the next era of leadership. So let's go ahead and drop in. Dr. Safrir, before we begin, would you mind sharing just a little bit about your story and what's called you into the work that you're doing now?
Because that's hard to know where to begin. I practiced as a fairly conventional psychoanalyst for decades, really until I was in my late 40s when there was an astrological event that often coincides with a kind of spiritual opening and a spiritualization of the life, which was precipitated by both my parents dying within 3 months of each other and my marriage ending, leaving me with three small children. And so I was just kind of putting one foot in front of another um, as I was trying to wrap my mind around what was happening. And I consulted an astrologer for the first time. And that was kind of the gateway drug. Um, I was so fascinated by my conversation with her and so astonished by how much she understood about me, having never have met me before just on the basis of my astrological chart, that I went back to see her multiple times, to
Mm.
look at the charts of my children and other important people in my life. Um, and that then I eventually resolved to apprentice myself to two well-known astrologers, and that began an exploration of all kinds of different healing modalities, including shamanism and functional medicine and energy medicine. And I just sort of organically collected one different skill after another, which I incorporated into my practice. And has resulted in kind of what I'm doing today.
That is beautiful. Wow, like such a journey, I'm sure, over the years. I'm curious along those same lines, I'm in the midst of reading your book currently, and you cover how you came into and go further into your story, which I think is really beautiful. And I'd like to go into the idea of sacred psychiatry a little bit more. You describe sacred psychiatry as an integration of personal and transpersonal. And so, for our audience who maybe doesn't understand what that means, one, could you elaborate on that a little bit? And then, how might reclaiming the sacred and the symbolic, which I think all of those other practices that you're describing really hold within them, transform the way that we lead in the world, and especially in the times that we're going through right now of cultural collapse and renewal?
Let's see. Okay, so what is sacred psychiatry? So, in my mind, the conventional way that psychiatry is practiced, including psychoanalysis and all of medicine in our scientific materialist paradigm, is there's no um, inclusion of the sacred or the spiritual dimension of healing, which
Yes.
is so important and so powerful.
Mhm.
And not only of healing, but of kind of the nature of ourselves and of the world. Like, I mean, my psychoanalytic institute, I would say, is practically allergic to um, the spiritual. I mean, there are meditation groups of which I belong to one of them, but it's it's not the magical. It's not the
Yeah.
symbolic. It's not the shamanic. There's no sensitivity for that, and in fact, an outright kind of rejection of it.
Mhm.
Um, And it's all about the personality self and the conditioning from the family, which is, extremely important and needs to be included in a holistic healing approach. But there's something that is tremendously lost and not and partial about leaving out the sacred dimension of healing. And
Yeah.
many patients come to me and they are hungry for a spiritual practice. They don't have one. Uh,
Hmm.
and they may have had some kind of religious tradition from their childhood upbringing, but they were turned off or they don't resonate with it any longer. And that's something that I've helped a number of people develop is a spiritual practice that is suited and aligned to who they are. Very personal.
Yes, yes. Well, and just to elaborate that on a little bit more, because you are making a really important distinction between religion and spirituality. And I think so often people kind of conflate the two of those. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about how you view that and just what your experience is in helping people along in a spiritual path?
Right. So, like let's say in Judaism, there's various laws, there's various practices, there's various prescribed behaviors and observances and commandments. And so there's like a structure to connect with.
Mhm.
Um, and in the kind of spiritual practice that I'm um, introducing my patients to, it's much more free form and it's much more creative and um, it can evolve over time and can be tailored to suit the person's particular um, taste and personality and style and what resonates for them. So it's very individualized. It's
Yes.
part of a particular received tradition.
Yes, yeah. Well, and like we mentioned before, the symbolic, right? That it, and I guess as I say that, I want to point back to what you were saying about even the field of psychoanalysis, and it's been so interesting to me being involved in the field as well, that so much of what we are working with in the unconscious realm is symbolism, right? And yet, when we want to take that outside of the psyche and into the world around us, which is also of course inherently related to ourselves and our psyche, yeah, there's some sort of dismissal, which I think is a part of my why I'm even wanting to host this summit, is because I feel like there is such a need to return to that symbolic way. It is a part of what I believe new leadership is. So I guess maybe to kind of come back around to how we might lead in that symbolic way in the cultural shifts that we're experiencing.
Just to respond to what you said, like, for instance, dream analysis,
Hmm.
conventional psychoanalytic um, theory or practice. Like, you may have a dream of your mother who's no longer alive, and she may say something to you, and it would never be understood as the spirit of your mother coming to visit you and communicating with you. It would be seen as a product of your own psychology.
Hmm.
It would have no independent reality apart from that. And, I've done some training with shamanic teacher where we would have dream circles, and the dreams that we would get would not be construed as personal, but rather as a message to the group or to the collective.
Yes. Hmm. I
Very
think
different.
that it is very different. I think that is such a beautiful element, and it's an unfortunate that it is, amputated from the
Amputated.
entire experience. Yeah, because, I think there is a way that we can hold all of it, right? That like, yes, this very well is a part of my own internal psychology and my own internal structure. And there are layers. There are layers to that. What else might it be? And can we be open to all of that and what's available and what we can learn from it? I think that's crucial to the time that we're in.
So there's been a lot of it's like a kind of reclaiming, and
Yes.
it's very enriching and very like there's something so mechanical and just the mundane has been divorced from the magical and the sacred and is just mundane.
Yes, and what a sad experience of life. I think if what we're trying to do here is actually live to experience aliveness, how do we infuse our life with aliveness? Because there is a huge difference of just living life and experiencing it in an alive way. And it really sounds like that is what you are calling for through your book and just I feel it in what you embody as well. And I'm curious, as we're having this conversation, so in the book, you're writing about astrology, psychedelics, energy medicine, and other mystical experience, much like what you just mentioned, even in dream work. And so you're doing all of that in a psychiatric context. What has allowed you to remain open to that, to those realms that our field is often, you know, demanding scientific proof of?
Well, I think I come by this quite honestly. My dad was also a psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, and he
Ah.
was a closet astrologer.
Okay, okay.
So, I mean, this is the psychoanalytic explanation, like
Yep.
in terms of my conditioning, you know. And he
Yes.
was really an unusual person. He was a very difficult man, very difficult to be close to. But he was very spiritually oriented and sensitive, and um, he kept his fascination and love of astrology a big secret because he was a professor of psychiatry, and
Hmm.
he felt like that would be kind of death to his career. But he
Yes.
was very open, like he was always trying like interesting supplements. I remember him drinking noni juice, which was like a plant that grew in Hawaii,
Hmm.
that had some kind of, immune supportive qualities. And this is like a long time ago. This is before people did stuff like this as routinely as they do now. And he
Yes.
had a device in the bedroom that gave off negative ions that is supposed to, like be uplifting and good for your energy, you know?
Hmm.
So I had a model of someone who was very open. And he also like he trained in psychiatry in the 60s, in the late 50s and early 60s when psychoanalysis was king. And
Yes.
there was just starting to be the introduction of medications. And my
Hmm.
dad would like learn about the medications and incorporate them into his work so that he would do both, And that was like so like not done. But he was a maverick in that way. And so, I think I really have him to thank for my, openness. And I have had sessions with mediums where I've consistently heard that he is so thrilled about what I'm doing.
Wow, that is beautiful. Yeah, I think it is something so interesting to hear about be transmission of something like that in a lineage. And you can hear in that, like, he was quiet. He was doing this all behind the scenes. Whenever we first spoke, I could sense that, of course, you have had to go through some level of that to feel like you can be open and available and writing a book about it and, having an Instagram page. And so, and then here you are, and you're doing that and bringing these things that clearly were already of interest and already somewhere sprinkled in the family lineage, and you're bringing them forward in a time that I think it really is necessary to recognize um, the multidimensional self and the multidimensional realm that we are a part of.
Yes, I'm in deep agreement with you.
Mm. Well, there's another aspect of this, which is the ways that in Sacred Psychiatry, your book, you're not talking about just the individual. The individual is, of course, a huge part of all of this, but also you're talking about on a cultural level. And so I wonder if you would mind addressing some of that in the sense of what it might look for us to take up the role of um, cultural healers or leading in that way. And, when I say leader, I don't necessarily mean you have got to be, leading a whole company or something, but even the quiet ways that we as individuals um, walk a new path, pioneer a new path, and what kinds of internal architecture is necessary for something like that.
I'm not sure how to answer that question. I mean, I think there's something about example, that there's something about the way that you are in the world, that I am in the world, that is permission giving for other people to embrace something that is perhaps less consensus based and conventional. Um, like with my Instagram channel, like there's a lot of opportunity to educate, and to um, express my um, like what I care about and what I believe in. And they say, wow, like she's a psychiatrist and she's on the faculty of Harvard Medical School, like she's talking about, you know, mediums,
Hmm.
or astrology. Like what the hell, But but it also is very permission giving
It
and
is.
legitimizing.
Absolutely. I will say, I mean, to share my own personal experience, coming across your page and going, oh my gosh, this is someone who is a psychoanalyst, a psychiatrist. And, I've come across a few different people that are in this field of psychology talking about these things more recently. And every time for myself, it is such a like a relief. And it like you said, it is permission giving. I know I've had that experience with my own patients where they start to want to talk about something that is energy work related, or they've picked up a tarot deck or something, and I can sense the hesitance that they have of
Oh, yeah.
starting to share that. And then whenever I say I'm familiar with those things, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
It is such a relief, and it can become such a beautiful healing part of our work, honestly.
Right. And people do seek me out specifically because they have a sense from, reading my book or looking at my website or my Instagram that I'm very open to all kinds of different things, and I'm not going to pathologize them if they tell me that they got a message. I'm not going to say, oh, they must be psychotic.
Yeah, yeah. And that I think is the nuance involved in having someone that is available to that. And I guess that is it. It is the availability to it, that there is an openness while also having the structure of, a mind that can critically think about things while also being available to what is maybe more numinous, something that isn't easily explained or scientifically proven in certain ways.
Right. A lot of people come to see me who have chronic complex medical illness.
Mm,
Like they may have, fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or have had, exposure to toxic mold or many come to see me because they've been prescribed like a whole cocktail of pharmaceuticals and they don't want to be on them, but it's very difficult for some people to get off of them. There's tremendous withdrawal syndromes.
yeah.
So, like, part of like the treatment plan is if they're open to it, is to develop a spiritual practice,
Mhm.
because that's healing for all of these different things and supportive for all of these different things. In addition to almost everybody that I see, I recommend nervous system retraining.
Yes. Yes. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes. Well, you know, over time, as I guess, different systems have been created and I've been introduced to them. Like the first one that I um, was prescribing was dynamic neural retraining system, DNRS. The second one that I would recommend was called the Gupta program. And now the one that I recommend all the time is called Primal Trust. And
Mm,
it's just remarkable. It's such a wonderful tool and resource. And the originator of it, her name is Dr. Catherine King. And I have the greatest admiration and respect for her. She was someone who suffered from, chronic Lyme and, tremendous fatigue, was totally dysfunctional and was chasing every supplement and every kind of alternative treatment, and nothing would help until she was introduced to nervous system retraining. And she has, developed a whole system of it that involves like brain retraining, but also, which is kind of top down, like different kinds of, you know, practices where you um, like imagine certain things or do different kinds of meditations or affirmations, but it's also from bottom up with like vagal system retraining,
mhm.
eye yoga, and different practices like humming and gargling and things that support the um, vagus nerve. But it's all about getting people out of a state of chronic fight or flight, which causes so much
Yes.
inflammation. And
Yes.
it's just essential, especially with what's going on in the world today. I mean, people are frightened, like it's very scary,
Yeah.
the world that we're in right now. And it's just essential to be able to regulate your own nervous system.
It
So that's a
absolutely.
big part of what I recommend to everybody. That and also nutrition. It's so crucial. Like if a person is eating a diet that is either unhealthy in terms of processed and packaged foods, or even a diet that includes foods that would be healthful, but they're not healthful for them. They have some kind of autoimmune response to it. It's going to be very difficult to heal. Like there's so many different factors that need to be considered when you're trying to heal holistically. And if you leave any one of them out, it can like not be successful.
Absolutely. I think that is so crucial. It's been something that I've witnessed time and time again and experienced myself as well in our Western paradigm medical system of, you're sent to a specialist here and a specialist there, and everything is so disconnected. And the necessity of integration and that holistic view, which in a lot of ways I have felt, psychoanalysis gets close to, just coming from the training that I have had, but also some of my discrepancy with it, I guess I would say, is the ways that the embodiment is often left out, or there's a lot of like thinking and well, analyzing, but not always going into the body or the felt sense of what is really going on in there. And then, yeah, all of those other factors of nutrition, of our environment, what is going on in our environment today. And this is maybe cliche, but I'm thinking of the sense of like not wanting to come into normalcy in an environment that is what we're living in today. Because what does that mean then? That we're, if we're in a toxic environment and we become normalized to it,
Right.
what is
That's,
that? What kind of life is
it's,
that?
like you have to be, anesthetized to not, um, like be aware of how out of alignment everything is, like the way that we relate to the environment, the
Hmm.
way that we relate to our screens.
Yes.
Um, and there's so much addiction, like so much misuse of alcohol and other substances, and uh,
Yes.
people are just, surviving.
Yes, absolutely. Searching, like seeking. And I think that what you're talking about there, the like coming into right relationship with the land too, that everything is so connected. The way that we treat our land is
Cosmos. We can't even
the
see the stars.
that's right.
Like, I mean, I live
Yes.
in Boston. I never, maybe I'm lucky if I see Venus.
Uh-huh. Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's so polluted. And the ways that that also then reflects like how we treat our own bodies, how we relate to ourselves on that level. So I think you're bringing so many important insights in. And, um, there's for those of us who feel resonant with your message, whether clinicians or, corporate leaders, what would you say to those who are fearing, embracing, thinking in this kind of way, this bringing the sacred into their work, and fearing that it might make them seem unscientific or unprofessional, or in some cases being told it's even irresponsible? Any
Yeah.
words of wisdom?
I don't know, like I think a lot of people secretly have all kinds of experiences and they're
Yes.
just not out of the closet about it, and I think that it would be of service to all were they to be more courageous about who they are and what they've experienced and be and share that. It does feel risky, and but I think we really deny like one of the most important parts of ourselves when we keep that hidden.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. I mean, you're speaking to the need for greater authenticity and not cutting off parts of ourself, right? Being able to, well, again, it's the integration of the whole that we have a multitude of experiences, and anytime we're cutting some part of that off or dissociating from some part of that, we're left incoherent. And your message is definitely one of bringing that forward and asking people to come into contact with all of these parts of themselves. Um,
Right. And share and,
share
you know,
it. Yes.
and lead by example, like
Yeah.
that we were talking about permission giving before. And I think, that eventually you draw the people to you who resonate with where you're coming from. And people don't know where you're coming from if you don't let them know.
That is absolutely right. And that has certainly been my experience along the way. So, yeah, I'm glad that you're highlighting that piece, that the more that we can be ourselves, the more we are drawing the people in who resonate. And I think we end up being surprised um, by who ends up resonating. So, well, there is a final question that I like to ask each speaker that I'm featuring on here. And that is, how do you know deep in your body, in your own field, and in your own knowing that you are leading in alignment with your soul?
I guess when I feel a certain kind of excitement, when
Mm.
when I don't feel worry, when I feel lit up.
Mm, yes, I really resonate with that. The lighting up and a sense of maybe buoyancy in that. Yeah, that's beautiful.
When you're excited, I followed the
Mm.
excitement.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Dr. Safrir, it has been such a pleasure to feature you, and thank you so much for the depth and the clarity and your presence. I mean, I feel the energy that you carry, even through the screen. And
I
so,
feel your energy, and I
ah,
am in a lot of admiration of this summit and what you're trying to create and the themes that you're capturing and trying to address. I really resonate with it.
thank you so much. Thank you for those words. I appreciate it so much that you were willing to feature yourself. And for anyone who's interested in going deeper in your world, I will be linking your website, your Instagram, and any information about your book below the video.
Wonderful.
All right. Thank you.